really nice Monday morning. I hope everybody had a real nice weekend. And it's a lovely day right now. There's no doubt about that. I'm going to call this meeting, like I said, call the meeting to order. It appears that everyone, I believe, all board members are in attendance. So, Haley, if you wouldn't mind putting the American flag on the screen, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. So if everyone will join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
and
Republic for
to
which
the
it
republic which stands one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for
liberty for all. So as I said earlier, we all are here, and item number 2 is acknowledgements, and let me hand that off to our general manager, Mr. Weigel. John?
Morning, board, staff, and the public. We're, as you know, we had undergone a search for a new board secretary, and I'm happy to report this morning that Osana Tutarian is now on board under the tutelage of our current deputy district clerk, Haley Dodson. And Haley, would you, I don't know if you're able to go to video with Osana. There she is.
Hello.
Osana,
Good morning, Osana.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Morning.
Thank you.
Osana's a resident of Morro Bay. She comes to us from the state hospital in the Atascadero. She has a great background in a number of different areas, including several years in HR. So we're looking forward to her participation on the staff. And as everyone does on the staff, everyone sort of pitches in a lot of different areas. And Osana is that type of person. So we're very happy to have her on the staff as our newest member.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well,
Back to
Osana, thank you, Mr. Weigel. So, Osana, welcome aboard. I know I sent you an email this morning, but just a slight offside. I once worked at the state hospital at Ash, so we can sit down and tell stories at some point. So
Okay.
it's always fun. So welcome, and
Thank you.
let's get to item number 3 in public comment. And Osana, do we have any members of the public who wish to make public comment on the agenda item?
Yes, there are a few.
I'm training her. So I'm going to have her kind of shadow me, and we do have 2 written comments to read into the record, and we also have Crosby Swartz and Dwayne Lee that would like to speak. So would you like me to read the written comments first, or bring in the members of the public first?
Why don't you go ahead and do the written comments?
Okay.
Do those first, okay?
So I see Christine Heinrichs is here, and she submitted a written comment. So I'm going to see if she would like to read it. So I'll read the next written comment first. The written comment is from Cheryl McDowell, and it says, "Hello, board. Friday, November 6, 2020, the California Coastal Commission made a ruling on an applicant. The CCSD issued an intent to serve. All commissioners voted denial. We have no new water, and it appears that this commission will continue to deny any and all intent to serve. No permits to build will be issued. CCSD general manager and legal counsel need to adhere to these rulings and follow protocol of the LCP. CCSD is inviting litigation by applicants on the water wait list by issuing intent to serve notices. I hereby ask the board to resend the CDP as written, as it's not for growth." And this was a comment for today's board meeting, even though I don't think anything's on here for that. So I'm going to see if Christine...
Haley, I'm sorry to interrupt you, and maybe there's a typo here, but item number 3 says public comment on agenda items.
Yep. Yep, and this was an item to read at today's board meeting, according to Cheryl's email. So I'm just reading as it requested.
I understand, but it's not the agenda item.
Correct.
It's a public comment
So
on.
Yeah, the
something
subject
other
line
than
is,
agenda item.
So I'm just doing as I'm told. Please have this read at today's meeting during public comment.
So
So
let
the
me
next-
ask a question. Is it because we're having a special meeting today and that the only public comments generally taken at a special meeting are for agenda items only?
Yeah, that's probably why she.
So that's why it's stated in that way. So any comments outside of the agenda item would not normally be read or addressed at the meeting. This is specific as a special meeting for agenda items only.
So Haley, I'll tell you, why don't we go to the people that are attendees and call on them, and then you could look through whatever other written comments you have and see if they're appropriate to be read at today's meeting, okay? So
Yes.
go ahead and call on the folks that are.
Yeah, I'm going to bring in Christine Heinrichs first because she does have November 9th special meeting comments to read. Christine, would you like to unmute yourself and read your comment? Christine? Okay, so I'll read her written comments. I ask the board to not approve acceptance of this grant. While the APCD grant of $8,977 is welcome, the district must pay over $13,000 to have it installed. The district is strapped for funds for critical infrastructure. Spending this money at this time cannot be justified. In the future, if the district acquires electric vehicles and needs a charging station for them, it would be appropriate to install a charging station. The CSD is a water, sewer, fire district. It is not the business of providing power to vehicles. I support the goal of reducing carbon emissions. The district is in an excellent position to be a leader in that area. However, electric vehicle charging stations to serve the public are a step outside the district's purview. This grant application came before the board in July when 2 grants were in the offing and the district's commitment was $10,000. Now there's 1 grant and the district's commitment is up to $13,000. The GM claims those costs can't be recovered, but I'm not assured that the numbers he presents are accurate or realistic. The grant offer letter is dated November 2nd, asking for a response within 10 days. This item could have been added to the regular meeting agenda for November 12th, avoiding the cost to the district for an extra meeting, payment to the directors, and HUP video. At the July 16th meeting, not either of the June meetings, this grant application was narrowly approved by a 3-2 vote. One of those 3 votes in favor was Director Steidel, who before the vote asked that the grant applications be withdrawn, saying, "Let's just kill this," suggesting her support is less than enthusiastic. This project lacks public support and has only the minimum of board support. Stop it now. This is another example of the general manager reaching behind his authority to push the edges of what he can do. When he presented the board with the project description for the Sustainable Water Project for Growth, after being directed to describe the project for existing users only, the board failed to act to require that it be revised. Now this project. He explained at the July 16th board meeting that he would have an opportunity to decide whether to fund it later. This is later. The answer should be no. Christine Heinrichs. And the next member of the public that wishes to speak is Dwayne Lee. Dwayne, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everybody, board, staff. I would just like to make the comment that I did not support this project when it came before the Finance Committee. And the reason for that is a lot of what Ms. Heinrichs just stated. I don't believe that the CCSD is in the business to provide a charging station. And since we did not get both of the grants, I certainly don't think that we would need to be spending any money. Whether or not we could get this money back or not, would be to be seen. So I don't think that at this time, this is anywhere near what we should be putting our finances and our money towards, as much need as we have for the infrastructure projects and so on that we're attempting to fund and fix now. So I would just really ask the board to reject this and vote no on this item 4A. Thank you very much.
The next member of the public that wishes to speak is Karen Dean. Karen, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good morning. I agree with the other speakers that this is not under the purview of the CCSD to be doing. I think this is something that is more to benefit the Chamber of Commerce and the merchants that should be doing this instead. But aside from that, I have a lot of questions about the project itself that I think need to be taken into consideration as you discuss this. I'd like to know how the customers are going to be billed. Is this going to be credit and debit, and won't it need a direct link to banking systems to verify card validity? Who is going to maintain system and monitor the billing? Where is this going to be at the Vets Hall? Is it going to be on the street or the main parking lot? How are you going to get power to it? And is that a new line from the building included into the installation cost? How long does it normally take to charge a car? Is somebody going to plug in, wander to the other end of town and be gone the whole rest of the day and prevent anybody else from using it? What was the 4-year break-even point based on? And what happens if someone else puts another one in the shopping area of the district that's going to kind of keep you from breaking even because you're going to have competition? I want to know what the benefit is to the taxpayers of Cambria, because it seems to me that the benefit of this would be more for tourism and business. And I'd also like to know, where has one of these electric vehicle charging stations in our county been installed with a fee for use like this is proposed, that we can check on to see if it's cost effective for us to even break even? Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. The next member of the public that wishes to speak is Tina Dickinson. Tina, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Haley. Good morning, board. As you know, I wrote to you yesterday, all of you, including the general manager and legal counsel. First of all, you're citing from a board meeting June 16th, 2020 that never existed. The meeting was June 18th. The comments that were made at that time were to push it forward to a future agenda item. So the very premise of this meeting today and what you're basing it on in staff's description is entirely wrong. Further, to take more money out of the general fund because you didn't get both of these grants is just so unfair to the ratepayers. I believe that when you say in staff's report that more and more tourists are using electric vehicles, this project will provide two key locations at the Vets Hall in East Village. This is an item that should be shared or maybe singly put by the Chamber of Commerce, as the City of Morro Bay has a charging station, but so did the Chamber of Commerce put one in there. This should be the Tourism Board and the Chamber of Commerce. There should be no more money from the ratepayers of Cambria for something that is absolutely unnecessary at this time. And the Vets Hall would be the least place you'd want it. You'd want it in the east, close to restaurants and shops. People are supposed to walk from the Vets Hall to either spot. No, this is really not. I agree with Director Farmer and President Farmer and Director Rice, as they have consistently voted on this, and it is a bad decision. Thank you.
All right, I believe that's all the public comment we have. Is that correct, Haley?
That is correct. Actually, Crosby would like to also speak on this item.
Oh, that's right. He has his hand up now. My apologies. Go ahead, Crosby.
Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you, President Farmer and members of the board. I just have a few more comments to make in addition to the comments that have already been made. Having another EV charging station in town is not a bad thing. But as the demand for charging stations increases, the local businesses are going to take care of that need. We have 4 businesses that have charging stations in town now, 2 in San Simeon, 1 in Cayuga, Sonombra, and Morro Bay. And as I say, I'm sure in the near future, any of the major hotels are going to have these kind of facilities to attract customers. And they, of course, will give priority to their guests, but if the facilities are unused, they could probably be made available for people just driving through as well. As it's noted in the agenda package, the district is not going to make any money from operating this. In fact, it's very unlikely that they're even going to break even, especially as the competition increases and more EV charging stations are added. There's not just the cost of putting it in, there's significant costs in maintaining the network and maintaining the facility and handling the building and so forth. It's a continuing drain that you're committing the general fund to do. And you may make some of it back, hopefully, but it's just not a moneymaker for the district. And it's something probably, we were told that we should cease all discretionary spending. Well, you can cease this one right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Crosby. I don't believe there are any more comments from the public members in attendance, so let's move on to item 4A, and let me hand this back to General Manager Weigel.
Thank you, President Farmer. So item agenda 4A is discussion and consideration of approval of grant award for an electric vehicle charging station and adoption of resolution 51-2020, amending the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Staff is recommending to the board to approve a grant award for an electric vehicle charging station at the Vets Hall and adopt resolution 51-2020, amending the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. So thank you for coming together for a special meeting today. As you know, the deadline for responding to the grant was just 10 days, and that would end up on our day of our regular meeting, which also is a already pretty packed agenda with a closed session following. We applied for 2 different grants, a big grant and then the pollution control district grant. We were denied the big grant, which would have funded this 100%. As this grant from the Air Pollution Control District funds 40%, 60%, and the remainder is funded through ourselves. We have a cost that we've studied costs and expected revenue generation from this, and on a very conservative basis, it pays itself back in just a couple of years. There are currently no public charging stations from Carmel to Morro Bay. The governor just came out last month, or excuse me, in September, with an executive order to ensure that all cars sold in California after 2035 are non-gasoline powered and non-fossil fuel powered. The charging station is going to be located just outside the American Legion entrance on that side of the building with those parking places. It'll take up 2.5 parking places. It's a dual station that would power 2 cars at once. There are several different levels of charging. There's one that runs on 110 volt that would plug into your any plug in your home. That generally takes hours and hours and hours to charge. The next level up, which is a level 2, which we're looking to install, charges and up to, depending on the car and the size of the charge, can recharge your car anywhere from a half an hour to an hour or 2. The level 3, which is a direct DC over 400 volts, that's the most expensive. It's over $30,000 to install one of those. That charges in about 20 minutes from a 0 charge to a full charge. We're looking to do that again at type 2. And the reason we want to do it at the Vets Hall is we have full control over the Vets Hall. We are still pursuing charging stations or a charging station at the East Village public parking lot, but we recently learned that we do not own the parking lot there, or there's question about whether we own that. So we're working with the county to either confirm that or determine if we can get a permission to operate over there. One other major point is we did do research and through our district attorney to understand our authorities within the district, and we confirmed that through our LAFCO powers that we do have authorities to operate transportation services. Those are the authorities that give us certain other operating abilities, such as operating our lighting in town and some of the other services as well. Want to also bring Ray Dienzo into the conversation as well to add any points that he'd like to make.
Yes, thank you, General Manager Weigel. At this point, there's nothing much to add to that report other than, yeah, we're still pursuing the grant opportunity for the East Village. The county is already committed to give us permission for that. It was a timing issue. So, yeah, so we weren't able to get that before you today, but that's going to be inevitable in the near future as well. But I think even though my purview is more utilities, I think this charging station contributes to the overall smart infrastructure that we're moving towards with upgrades to our water and sewer infrastructure. And even though this is not directly related to that, it is part of the infrastructure as a whole. And I think it would put us in good standing for future grant opportunities relating to environmental power and energy saving grant opportunities.
President Farmer, one other point as well. While we posted an update to the agenda item, the board did consider this item on June 18th as to go forward with a grant, but pushed the agenda item was continued to a meeting on July 16. So we added that to the change, and that's been posted online.
All right, thank you, General Manager Weigold. Just for clarification before I bring this to the board for discussion, you mentioned in your presentation just now, investigation through our district attorney. So I'm assuming you're referring to Mr. Dan Dow and his office and not our own attorney, Mr. Carmel, is that correct?
District Council, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's bring this back to the board, and Director Rice has had her hand up for a while, so Amanda, go right ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me start off by saying we've been awarded a grant. We would be ill-advised to turn it down because future grants, those organizations don't forget easily. So that's the first thing I want to say. Second thing I want to say is this shows why we have a grants policy where it comes to the board before we even apply, because there's permitting costs related here. This it's similar to why you want to have a project be shovel ready, because all of these things could end up costing us more money. And I have a zillion questions like, What about the variability of electricity costs, or who on our staff is actually going to be responsible for maintaining it? Do we have enough staff? What are the public, what does it mean when they say public uses? There's all kinds of questions, but I don't need questions. I don't need answers to those today. What I do need today is I just want to remind us that there's a reason why there's certain policies in place, and our grants policy is set so that we don't get to a point where we've been awarded the money, but we don't want to do it, or we can't fund the extra amount because we were expecting the second grant. I don't know even if our district is considering starting to purchase electric vehicles that would be using this station, which is another side of it too, because that's absolutely a public use if we're charging one of our own vehicles. So all of those things stated, I am reluctant, but I think it is really ill-advised once we are at this point for any grant from any source, that it's not a good idea for the board to be turning it down at that point. It shows we don't have confidence in our GM, or we have bad process going on at our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rice. I don't see any other member of the board having their hand up. Would anyone else like to comment? David, do you have your hand up? You have your physical hand up. No, you don't. Okay, Don Howell has put his hand up, excuse me. So Director Howell, go right ahead.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, a couple of questions here. I see that Mr. Weigold is not with us at the moment. And actually, much of what I have to say, I really need a response from him. I know that we did, in fact, approve by a 3-2 vote that the application should go forward. However, I have not really heard a really good justification for why we should be doing this. And with due consideration to Director Rice's warning, nevertheless, is in a situation where we are supposedly, and I believe it, somewhat strapped for money. And the fact that I really am a little bit, that's why I really want to hear a good argument for how this project will benefit the ratepayers and the people who live in this community. And I'm not hearing anything yet on that regard. And I have some questions as to the actual practicality of as the project's presently designed. So I'll go ahead and say these, but I will have to vote against this grant, accepting this grant if I don't get some good answers to these. Since the project is supposed to be ADA compliant, I would assume that means that at least one of the slots for the charging will have to be somehow designated as an ADA spot. That if that's not the case, I'd like to know that, because if that is the case, it means that only one of the 2 stations would be available to people who did not have that handicap sticker. So that's kind of an issue, because the other issue I have just is an arithmetic one. In the grant application, it's suggested that I think the number is 4,000 vehicles would be use this in a year's time. Now I divided that by days, and that comes to 11 vehicles a day. If it takes 2 hours to charge a vehicle, that's 22 hours to get 11 vehicles through there. To me, that doesn't seem realistic. So I'm a little bit questioning the arithmetic as to how this can be economically justified. I'm not seeing, I think the district is going to end up paying more than it's going to be able to recover, or it may take longer. The other issue is, and I've looked at the contract with the provider, we will have to, not included in any of that cost is the cost of if we have to run power from somewhere. It's quite conceivable that we have to dig up some pavement in order to run a line, and there is no, and that is specifically excluded from the contract with the provider. So I'm a little uncomfortable that the costs that are presented to us are the final costs. The other thing is I haven't really heard any good answers to most of Ms. Dean's questions. And without those, I cannot vote for this without those answers. So I'm sorry. Apologies to John for putting him through this much work, but that's one reason why we are being asked to. That's why we have to approve grants when they come forward. And as Director Rice said, we need to, the process we approve before the application is made. And then when the grant comes through, we must approve the acceptance of the grant. If that second step means anything, then we should be able to disallow it at this point. If on the other hand, we dare not, because the granting authority will then never give us any more money, then there's no point in having that second step in the process. So I think that if I can't hear a good justification and hear Ms. Dean's questions answered to my satisfaction, I just don't see how this can go forward and be of benefit. The biggest question of all, and what I'm hearing from the public, is how is this supposed to benefit the people here? It will certainly benefit the tourists and it will benefit the businesses, but is it going to benefit me? Is it going to benefit my neighbor? I'm not seeing that. So we need to have a little better clarity on that issue as we go forward, because otherwise I think this may be overreaching a bit. The last thing I wish to say about this is that while it is true that to encourage the use of electricity over gasoline is great, I have to say this particular grant is specifically for non-solar, non-wind powered applications. That means that we have to connect to PG&E. We cannot put panels on the roof and use anything. So this is not really reducing the dependence on fossil fuels. It is simply moving it somewhere else. It's moving it off of the coast here and inland to the power plants. So again, I'm waiting to be told why this is really a good idea. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Howell. Vice President Stidel, and then Director Rice again.
Get myself unmuted. Thank you, President Farmer. It occurs to me an observation for all of the conversations that we've had about this and everything is that I will back it up just a little bit to say that if for instance, we had a strategic plan in place and that strategic plan addressed things like the idea of whether we be moving to, you know, a lowered carbon footprint, or that we wanted to embrace certain kinds of things, or the recognitions of, besides the strategic planning, the indications that have come down from the state of California for that 1035 hour to make a transition, or 2035. I think a lot of this would have been a moot point because we would have had, you know, a path forward that we had already discussed and had a schedule to, and also then would be able to rely on the policies that we have in place. So I think that we need to recognize there are a few things that we need to do to get ourselves aligned for going through and making some of these decisions. And I'm hopeful that we can do that relatively soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Stidel. Director Rice.
Thank you. First, I agree with Director Stidel, and things that come down from the state is one of the reasons why we do have local governance, whether it's cities or CSDs or some other form of governance, because every part of California is unique. And so one size fits all isn't necessarily the right way to go. And I appreciate her bringing up the strategic plan, that if we have a vision that includes lowering the carbon footprint, or even how do we change our current vehicle fleet over to at least hybrid, if not electric. I think those are two important points. The second point I'd like to raise is something that Director Howell said about the second approval. I think you make a good point. What's the point of a second approval if we can't really say no? I think part of the second approval has to be, there may have been things during the grant application process that changed the numbers. And so any additional funds that are either received or need to be spent for matching funds, that's when that comes forward. I think that's why the board needs to be cognizant that the first time when a grant opportunity arises, that the general manager brings it to the board, we have to be aware that when it comes back to us for a second approval, when we are awarded the grant, that the numbers may change. And that's why we might need a second approval, because the numbers have changed from the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rice. Director Pearson.
Yeah, I think I'm going to vote in favor of this, even though there are some questions out there, just because I think we need to start making the small steps towards, carbon neutral. And if we don't do this, then we're kind of, saying that we don't want to get there, or that isn't something strategic that we want to move towards, and that wouldn't be a good idea. I do think that we will recoup the costs over time. I'm not sure how fast or how slow that's going to be. Would like to make the point that this is not coming out of ratepayers' money. This is the general fund, which is funded by property taxes, not funded at all by water and sewer rates. So, and we have ample reserves in that fund at this time, and we're talking about $15,000. We're not talking about $50,000. And again, turning down grants is never a good idea. We had to turn down a grant for the fire department a couple of years ago, and I know Director Rice and I were very pained at having to do that, but we did, and that doesn't set a good precedent, especially when we're about to, embark on some more projects and stuff that we really would like to get some grants for. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you, President Farmer.
Thank you, Director Pearson. Seeing no more comments from, where we are. All right, Director Howell, go right ahead. And then Director Rice again.
As to the carbon neutrality, well, it is true, and I think we should be moving in that direction. 2 things, though. We don't have a policy regarding purchasing electric vehicles on the one hand, and on the other hand, as I said before, this particular charging station does not do anything to promote carbon neutrality. It simply moves the burning of fossil fuels off of the coast and to wherever the power plant is that's generating the electricity, or the nuclear power plant. So I'm sorry, this is not a step towards carbon neutrality in and of itself. I just wanted to comment to that. And I do stand corrected. Yes, it is not the ratepayers that we need to be concerned about here, but the taxpayers, which again, raises the same issue. The main beneficiaries of this project will be the businesses. And while the businesses do pay property tax, and which we get a little piece of, a minuscule piece of, I may say, I don't believe we get any of the sales tax. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So where is the Chamber of Commerce? Why are we not hearing from them? Why are they not in with us on this? I see no problem in the CCSD partnering with the Chamber of Commerce, but otherwise, again, I just don't think the beneficiaries of this project are the ones that are going to be ending up paying for it the way it is right now.
Thank you, Director Howell. Going back to Director Rice. Amanda, go right ahead.
I would move approval of Resolution 51, 2020. And along with that, I have I want to include another item in the motion, but I'm going to stop there and see if there's a second.
It appears as if, there we are. Okay, so we have a second from Director Pearson. If I could just make a comment, and Mel McCullough was here earlier. I had emailed him, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, as well as former director Jim Beringer, board director Jim Beringer with the Cambria Tourism Board, hoping that they could attend and perhaps not just listen in, but participate in the discussion. Mel was here earlier, but obviously was unable to get back into the meeting. My feeling is personally, and this has already been voiced by members of the public, and I believe another board member as well, that with regard to the EV charging stations, first off, if we have them, they should not be at the Vets Hall, or it should not be at the Vets Hall if we have one, but they should be in the parking areas adjacent to the public restrooms, which are closer to the businesses, since we are basically, this is a tourism serving situation that we're trying to design here. And my feeling is that this should be going through, as was just commented on, through the Chamber of Commerce and the Cambria Tourism Board. And I don't really feel that this is something that we should be involved in. That's, even though obviously it's much more an environmentally correct way of moving forward in this particular decade, but I'm just not inclined to be approving it. That's just my personal opinion. But we already have a motion and a second. Director Howell, you wish to comment again?
Just briefly in comment to, I don't know, this is not really directly to the motion, but kind of peripheral. I do agree with Director Steidel that we probably wouldn't even be having this discussion if we had had a strategic plan in place. So something to think about.
President Farmer?
Director Rice?
I'm going to offer an amendment that adds two actions to direct staff. And please, Mr. Carmel, if I'm outside of what is appropriate for the agenda item, please let me know. But I think that me voicing this will get it on a future agenda, even if we can't do it today. So the two things that I think need to be, that this approval, I'm more comfortable with this approval if we do two things. We partner with the chamber and the tourism board, and if the grant allows it, find ways for them to help offset our costs on that we have to put in for matching. And if they can't, perhaps there's some permitting costs they could help with or something. And the second one is that we develop an electric and or hybrid vehicle purchasing policy within our, because I think those two things do say about how this can benefit the community. And in light of possible competition, I don't think that we need to be worried about where it is or whether we'll break even. The chamber and the tourism board will do it even if we do have this station built. I suspect that having one dual charge station will not be enough for this town at some point fairly soon. So Mr. Carmel, is there a way that we can add those two conditions into the motion, or do those need to go to future agenda?
I think you can add them into it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think you can add them into the motion.
Okay. So that's what I would like to do, is amend the motion to include two conditions: that the general manager work with chamber and tourism board to work on whether there are any costs that they can help us reimburse, or any other kinds of partnering with those two organizations, and developing a vehicle policy for electronic vehicles that might be able to use that station.
All right, thank you, Director Rice. I see that we have two members of the public that wish to comment, and I think we're going to allow this, especially because it appears that former Director Jim Beringer is one of those that is wishing to speak. So I believe that's correct. Jim, go right ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, I just signed on, and I apologize. I was having trouble getting on, and I understand that Mel McCulloch also was having trouble signing on. So I didn't get it until it was time for a little bit of discussion before Amanda made the motion. The tourism board is restricted from capital projects. So although spirit-wise, there can be support, but from it appears there's a funding opportunity that's uniquely suited to the landowner, which is the CCSD. So regardless of whether it goes into a parking lot or that's owned by the CCSD or whatever, that would be something that if you have an opportunity to get some funding for some facility, I would highly recommend that you do that. There are restrictions on what we can do. We would have to at least, in fact, when I was on the board some years ago, about 3 years ago or so, we had the opportunity to put a station in. It was by Tesla. They were going to do it for free. And the board decided not to move forward because it was a single vendor. And that was contemplated for the Pocket Park, another CCSD property that would be ideal, I think, for a facility such as this. We're going to need multiple units, and it serves everyone. It doesn't just serve the tourism. It's a place for people to stop and recharge and move on. And if you're talking about a environmentally friendly way of moving the CCSD forward, this is an opportunity to do so. That's my comment.
All right, Jim, thank you. I hope this doesn't appear to be out of order, but we do have another comment from Crosby Swartz. So Crosby, go right ahead.
Okay, this time it's not from Crosby, it's from the other half. Okay, my comment, I'm not going to comment anything about electric vehicles, but the thing is, the people that paid the taxes here, if we want to have an electric vehicle, we have our house to plug in. So this is definitely subsidizing the tourism. Because we have ways to plug our own cars in here. The other thing that I just want to bring out is that it seems like the two directors that are kind of pushing this thing are not going to be on the board. So maybe you should just postpone this until the new board is in place and then continue on, because we are going to have to live with these decisions. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Laura. I believe with regard to this particular situation, there's certainly a time element involved, and the opportunity for this grant will be up on Thursday. So it's not like that we can just necessarily pursue this particular item once the new board is installed, if I'm not mistaken. So not seeing any. Oh, okay, just a moment. All right, looks as if we have two more members of the board that wish to comment. So Director Howell, why don't you go ahead and speak first, and then Director Rice.
Thank you. Originally, I wanted to point out something which I had neglected to point out before, which we do need to be aware of as we go forward on this, is that the financing of this, per the agreement that we have with the grant making authority, we cannot finance this with anything other than a conventional loan. So the usual leaseback tax avoidance type of loan that we've negotiated with most of our other properties cannot be used for this. It has to be conventional financing, which means it'll be whatever the interest rates, the going rates are. So that is also something. I have to say, and the other thing, while I appreciate Director Rice's suggestions, and certainly what I'm hearing, unfortunately, Mr. Beringer basically kind of solidified my point of view. If we cannot get, for whatever reason, cooperation from the businesses in this community to do something which directly benefits them and really does not benefit the residents as the public has mentioned. And we all have our own ability to charge our electric vehicles. We don't have to go anywhere else. So this does not benefit anybody who lives in town. I'm just not seeing it. I think this is a very bad idea, and it really, and I apologize, and I haven't heard the answers to Mrs. Dean's questions. So again, I urge that we put this to bed and move forward on something a little more productive.
Director Rice?
I think that we should be using this particular small, relatively small grant as a learning experience. I also think the two directors that are not going to be on the board anymore also have firsthand experience with grant that we had to turn down, as Director Pearson said. It's only $9,000 about that we would recoup 30 days after we send our receipts to APCD. And I am not happy with this either, which is why we put a grants policy where it has to be approved before we apply. So we don't have to have this kind of discussion. Let's make sure we do that going forward. But I also think it's a really, really bad idea to turn it down just for the fact that we are going to be working with APCD for future grants, because they're involved in a ton of grants related to energy, a la PG&E. So it concerns me if we turn it down. It's $9,000, so it's not a huge deal, and it's money out of our budget we wouldn't have to spend. But I'm not pushing the e-charging station as much as I'm trying to push. We need to be consistent in our decision-making process. And to me, the GM has done everything he could from the point where we said, wait a minute, to get it done right. And I don't think it's a good idea to vote it down.
All right, thank you, Director Rice. Director Howell, you wish to make another comment?
Yeah, this is my last parting shot. Yes, there's $8,000 of supposedly free money, but it's also a commitment to spend $13,000. So this is not that we're getting money. This is actually a commitment to spend money. That is really what we're talking about. If it wasn't for that 13,000, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So this is we are voting to spend district money on something that the taxpayers will not benefit from, at least not in any way that I can see. So again, the more we talk, the more opposed I'm getting. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Director Howell. I don't see any more hands up from, excuse me, Vice President Stidel, go right ahead.
I would just like to remind Mr. Howell that the taxpayers in this town are predominantly, or I should put it the other way around, the people who own businesses in this town live here and are taxpayers also. So I think relegating that kind of assignment to some ugly, nasty business thing is inappropriate. Thank you.
It appears as if Director Howell wishes to make it not necessarily a rebuttal, but a response. Go right ahead, Don.
Not a rebuttal. Yeah, Director Stidel's point is well taken, and I apologize. I didn't really mean. I have a tendency to exaggerate sometimes to make a point, and I'm afraid that was one of those. So definitely don't wish to. Let's put it another way. As far as I can see, this benefits only one segment of the community. Let me put it that way. And I just don't think that that is the best use of our money.
All right, thank you, Director Howell. Once again, not seeing any other members of the board wishing to speak, I just want to comment, and I think this has been alluded to during the course of this particular meeting, that somehow the process itself has not been done in the order that it should have been with regard to the application for the grant and so forth. So I just, and this has happened in the past where we did one thing when we should have done another first. And so, and I'm not going to elaborate on what that was. So I believe we are ready for, since we have a motion and a second, and there's been some amendments to the motion itself. So either Osana or Haley, if you could please read the motion for us before we take a vote.
Sure. Director Rice moved approval of Resolution 51, 2020, and Director Pearson seconded the motion. Director Rice offered an amendment to ask the general manager to work with the Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Board and to find ways to help offset costs for matching. And if they can't, there may be permitting costs that they can both help with, and to also develop a hybrid or electric vehicle policy.
All right, thank you very much. And I just want to say this, I'm sorry that Mr. Mel McCullough, the President of the Chamber of Commerce, wasn't able to attend and make comments that might have, how could we say it, elaborated on the participation of the Chamber of Commerce in this particular situation. So I'm sorry, just throw that right in there. So why don't we have a, let's take a vote of the board. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, point of order, please. I have a point of order.
Okay.
Did the amendment have, is the amendment agreeable to the second?
Right.
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, Director Rice? Director Pearson?
Aye.
Director Howell?
Nay.
Vice President Steidel?
Yes.
President Farmer?
No. So it would appear that the motion is passed 3-2. And we will move forward.
President Farmer?
I was just about to see if anyone else has anything to say. And I believe it's Mr. Carmel.
Yes, President Farmer. All action is necessary to actually approve the grant award itself. That was the resolution you were dealing with.
Oh, all right. So we have to.
But we need a motion to approve.
Of the resolution.
Okay, so maybe I'm not quite understanding this correctly. So we need a motion to approve
The grant award itself. There's two components. There's the funding and then there's the grant award. We didn't take action on the grant award.
Oh,
Okay.
President Farmer, I would move approval of the grant award. Sorry, I
would
didn't
second
know
that.
there were two actions, Mr. Carmel.
Yeah.
All right.
And I would second that.
All right. Okay, so let us go ahead and once again take a vote, Haley.
President Farmer? Excuse me, President
Yes.
Farmer?
Vice Steidel.
The acceptance of it goes further than that in that it requires an adoption of a resolution 51-2020, which also amends the fiscal year budget. So I
That's the
think
action
what
you
the
just,
motion needs to do is
That's what we did.
probably address it as approval for the grant award and the charge station and adoption of resolution 51-2020.
we already took action on the resolution.
And okay, I didn't hear it called out, so that's why.
Oh, yeah, I see.
That was the original motion.
Yeah, that was the
Amanda's-
original motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
apologize.
So Haley, just for clarification, could you read, at the suggestion of Council Carmel, could you read what it is that we are now voting on?
Yes, Director Rice moved approval of the grant award and Director Pearson seconded the motion.
All right, thank you. Why don't we go ahead and take the vote then? Thank you.
Director
Does
Rice?
that meet, Mr. Carmel, does that meet the requirements you needed for us to do?
Yes, it does.
Okay, yes. Thank you,
Director
Haley.
Pearson, you're welcome. Director Pearson?
Aye.
Director Howell?
No.
Vice President Steidel?
Aye.
President Farmer?
No. All right, well, we have taken two votes this morning, and it was, I would have to say, probably a much livelier discussion than any of us had anticipated, and it took almost an hour. So thank you all. members of the board, members of staff, as well as members of the public for participating. And it's just a little after 11 o'clock. It's a lovely Monday. Have a delightful day. Have a blessed day. And we'll see many of you back here at 2 o'clock on Thursday. So if anyone, no one else has any further comments, I think we'll end this meeting. And like I say, everybody take good care, be kind, wear a mask. Thank you.
Thank you.